So, welcome to the second training video in the lead up to IPF Worlds. This week has been a little bit more interesting, but we are recording, aka fingers crossed this video makes it onto the second one, and then I can sort of keep the streak going. So I'm excited for that. Now today, just to cut to the chase, we've got deadlifts and bench, exact same as last week, a lot heavier. So I think I should be aiming for somewhere around the 200 plus bench, depending on how I'm feeling, and then maybe a 340 plus deadlift, depending on how I'm feeling. Quick update on the hip, it's probably back to about maybe 50-60%. So like last week I was in like pain in the morning. This week it hurts getting out of the car. So there is progress, and I think the hip is slowly healing up. It's just I need to let the irritation die down. But to start this video, I was sort of thinking, what's the point of all these videos? Like, what's the point of me showing my training? What can I teach people? What can you learn from watching me train? And I think I'm still battling with that, because I'm still trying to learn how to impact my experience onto others. Because when people ask me for advice in terms of powerlifting, or what they want to do, what they want to achieve with the sport, how to do this, how to do that, I kind of always struggle as to which sort of advice to give. Because the way I split it, there's three tiers in powerlifting, and then there's the beginner phase. There's the intermediate phase, which I'll argue is the longest, and sort of like knowledgeable about the sport. And then there's the elite stage. Not to self-glaze myself, but I would like to imagine I'm in the elite phase. Although these days I'm going to IPF Worlds and I might be in the B group. So maybe I'm not, maybe I'm back in the intermediate stage, who knows? But then you could argue getting to IPF Worlds means you have the potential to be an elite athlete. But whenever people ask me for advice, I always struggle which one to give, and I found that the more I've stayed in commercial gyms, especially training commercial gyms, I'm getting better at it. Because when people come to you and actually advise on how to lift, what to do for training, I find that, to be honest with you, it's better to give people the most basic answer. Because in order to get good at something, people underestimate the amount of self-involvement or self-knowledge or teaching that's required. So I would argue that a lot of the greatest powerlifters, and I do get some who just come across genetic phenoms, anomalies, who honestly just train upon muscle mass and just grow, and they're phenoms. But I think a lot of the people who have done well in the sport and who have stayed in the sport for the longest have a good amount of self-involvement in the growth and learning. So what I'm basically trying to say, the more you do for yourself in the sense of learning how to train, learning what works for your body technical wise, watching videos by yourself on how to wedge, for example, in the deadlift, how to pull slack, how to set your arch, you doing things yourself to learn how to get better, really increases your growth, for your chances for growth. Because if you're just relying on someone external to spoon feed you that information and sort of guide you to where you need to go, sure, there's some great coaches out there, but there's always going to be a limit. And I think the best way you can learn and progress in the sport for yourself is to make sure that you're involved in your own training, you're involved in your own learning, and you're constantly updating what you know. But we've got deadlifts today. I've been working on my sumo technique, making sure that my hips are setting properly, and then I've got a bit more cues I need to work on, staying more of my heels to drive out. But if I can pull 345 today, I'll be very happy. If I can bench 202, I'll be very, very happy with that too. So before any more yapping, let's bench. If there are any more topics people want me to cover, honestly, I might just chat shit and just go. I might get into some life lessons. I'm not that old, but again, you know, you're on now, so you can impact some knowledge. You've had a few experiences, so you can impact knowledge on the younger generation. Although I don't know how many of you guys watch my YouTube, to be honest with you. I don't know who watches these YouTubes. I get messages once in a while, people saying, oh yeah, I watch it. And for that, thank you very much. But enough yapping, less bench and deadlift. And then next video will definitely be squats, because we've got something nice lined up. And squats is going really, really well. But let's start.
So just rounded off the last warm-up and bench with 190. The goal is to hit 202.5 for the top set and then see how that goes. If I can make that move around RP7, I'll be very, very happy. Now, in regards to what I was talking about in the beginning, so one thing I've been trying to focus on is really my on-rack on the bench press, because I think if my on-rack is bad, that's where I start to get a lot of bicep issues and start to load my forearms and bicep very heavily before I even start the bench press. So again, still playing around with my technique, still trying to find what works for me, because after Euros, I came to the conclusion there's no reason why I should have a sub 240 bench, I'll be honest with you, because I looked at everyone who was at that competition and there wasn't anyone's, like there were people whose arms were longer than mine, there were people who had less muscle mass than me, there were people who've been training less than I have. I know why my bench has stalled, and really it's more about the inflammation and potentially managing my rate of progression over the whole year. But fingers crossed, with a few more tweaks and also the right pacing, my bench can start to flush, because I haven't progressed in 2 years, man. Actually, that's a lie. I have progressed in terms of the amount of volume and intensity I can handle, but my top end hasn't shifted. So it's very weird. I benched 220 doing 170 for a set of 4, give or take, maybe 5. I can hit 180 for sets of 4s right now, but my bench press hasn't even progressed on the top end. So hopefully we can start to translate all those gains into being a bigger bencher, but we'll see how this 202.5 moves, and then we'll go deadlifts, which is always the problem child, but we'll see how it goes. So just rounded off the bench session, ended up hitting 202.5 for a top single, which moved okay. Speed was decent, and it was the second time I'm benching without elbow sleeves. I did all my backup work, so I had 165 for 5x3, and I did all of that with elbow sleeves, because again, the game is managing inflammation in that area. So I'm happy that I can start to progress into the 200s without any inflammation or any significant amount of pain. So hopefully that trend keeps on progressing as we approach IPF Worlds, but that's still a long way away. Happy with 202. We'll see what next provides. In terms of backoffs, 165 was good. It was starting to get a little bit harder towards the end, but here's where it's all rounded off. Getting more familiar and hopefully more comfortable with handling the heavier loads on the on-rack. So now we've got deadlifts. Fingers crossed we can hit 340 plus. But again, the hip is not back to 100%. I don't think it'll ever be 100%, to be honest with you. But again, it's better than last week. So if I can progress on that by any amount, I'm happy. And I think next week is my final pull for the block. So if this goes well, it means a lot of positive momentum for next week and potentially for the next 2 blocks. So let's see how it goes. Right, so just started warming up for deadlifts. So far, so good. The hip is actually holding up pretty well. We're just about to hit 220. So I think my plan is to go 220, 270, and then 305. That way 305 is within the range and it's like my gauge for the session. And then if 305 moves really good, then we'll go for I think 345 with the most reasonable, 340, 345. That's if the hip holds up. But so far, so good. Feeling really strong, feeling really explosive. Let's see how it goes for the rest of the session. I'll probably talk again after the last warm up, and then we'll sort of decide the top set together. I have a number in my head, but again, it all depends on how the warm ups are moving. So. So just rounded off the last warm up for the top set. Now, didn't move the best, and that's because I think of the new cues I'm trying to try. So I'm trying to really focus on maintaining heel pressure before the wedge, and also then transfer that to midfoot pressure. But for some reason, when I try heel pressure and I go into just pulling slack out the band, wedging and going, my heel's just coming off on the right side entirely. So it doesn't feel as stable, which is very weird. Even though I'm trying to cue more heel pressure, it's actually going away from the heel pressure entirely. So I'm just gonna zone out and just pull, rather than focusing on everything. Just zone out and pull, and then I've dropped it. The plan was 345. I don't think 345 will be on target or anywhere good. So I've gone for 340, and if I can move 340, we're just focusing on just pulling. Fingers crossed, we can still have a really strong week 4 for deadlift. So let's see how the top set goes, and then brief recap of the session afterwards, and then that'll be it until next week. So just to round off the video, 340 single did not move the best, to be honest with you. I just made too many technical flaws on the top set, but I think overall is what it is. I know, so basically if you look at my top set, my head position was just completely off, and then in comparison to back off, well, I need to maintain that neutral, like looking either straight. Head position, it's significantly better in terms of the way my shoulders translate and stay over the bar, rather than being too in front or too behind the bar, and I just messed that completely. But still, compared to how warm-ups were moving, I can't be too angry. But again, I just need to lock in. I need the hip to get healthier, and it is, but I just need to get healthier faster. So that pretty much rounds up the whole session. I had 245 for 3 sets of back offs, and then as of now, I'm just pretty much gonna go home, chill. My body weight is pretty light, and then a few other factors that could have affected the session, but we'll see how Monday goes, which is gonna be my secondary deadlift, and then we'll just ramp back up again. It's last week 4 next week. If I can get 355, 360, I wouldn't complain too much, but I want it a lot more. But it is one of those things where you just have to pace yourself according to what you have. So till next week Thursday for the heavy squat session.